Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And man, we've got an extremely talented guest with us today with Rob Lamothe out of Canada. He's so far north. No, he's not that far north. He's in Canada. A quick announcement. I just want to thank our mutual friend Mario Biffarali from Godin for hooking us up. Mario, thank you. And Mario has been so supportive of this show, man. You're always like very kind, and thanks very much, Mario. Also, make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe to subscribe to the audio and video. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the bell below. I always mess that up. Sorry. Quick on Rob Lamothe. Rob's primarily known as a vocalist and songwriter. He's also a guitarist. And if you have not heard Rob sing, you are in for a joy once you listen to him. He's like, this guy is a powerhouse, man. Like powerhouse is in like Paul Rogers, old school, really strong rock voices. He's had hit his own songs on the Billboard Charts here in the States and on hit TV shows all over the world. He's toured throughout Europe close to 30 times now. His rock band, Riverdogs, signed a record deal with a label based in Milan, Italy, and the resulting album, California, was released in 2017 to worldwide critical acclaim. Let me tell you right now, just if you want to hit pause on this, write down Riverdogs California, and then after this interview, go download it or buy it. It is literally one of the best rock albums I've ever heard. I think I sent Rob a note. It's just like Led Zeppelin come to, not that they don't sound anything like, but it's that kind of music that you're like, holy shit, almost every song kills it. I mean, just crushes it, every aspect of the music. Okay. Also in the band is Vivian Campbell, and there's some incredible lead guitar work in there. Rob has also been performing and creating with his sons Josh and Xander and his daughter Rose throughout most of their lives. A few years ago, the four of them began recording songs for a project that they call And the River Reveals Herself. That's a really cool title. I'm definitely going to talk about that. It just makes me feel like comfortable just like saying that. And the river, the resulting CD features 10 very intimate songs about love, evolution, joy, death, second chances, heartbreak, forgiveness, and more. It was released in October 2018 while Rob and Josh were touring through the Netherlands and Belgium, and Rob then headed off to Germany for some solo shows on his own. I'm going to say that. Just so you know, I am really bad at reading these. I apologize in advance, Rob. I'm butchering your whole life. Over the past several years, Rob's had the privilege of collaborating with world-class Indigenous artists like Derek Miller, Santee Smith, and Logan Staats, and the summer of 2019 marked Rob's 16th year on the faculty at the Interprovincial Music Camp, where he runs the songwriting camp he developed for young artists age 8 to 18. He's currently finishing up an album that includes guest appearances by drummer Mike Mangini from Dream Theater, bass player Greg Chasin from Badlands, Vivian Campbell again from Def Leppard and Riverdogs, and keyboard phenom Jimmy Wallace, who's on this show like quite a while ago. Jimmy, how you doing there, buddy? Who's the keyboard player from the Wallflowers, and he's on a lot of other stuff. He's out of Nashville, and the album is being mixed by Rob's bandmate from the Riverdogs, Nick Brophy. Man, I was like, that was like the SAT test for me. I was so like sweating that, man. Sorry. How you doing, man? So good to see you.
I'm good.
You're like you're a very calming guy, man. I don't know if I meant to tell you that. You're like a calming presence.
You know, I was a crisis worker for 5 years. I just stopped doing that in 2015, in September of 2015, kind of just on a side gig to music. I took a little turn and just got into.
What does that involve?
What does it involve? You know, I was just kind of looking to do something. I've been really involved in my community for years in a lot of ways. There's lots we could talk about that, but somebody told me, I was volunteering at a youth center, and someone on the board of directors said, hey, the county is looking for someone to run their program for homeless people, the emergency housing program. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And they wanted someone with a university degree, a social work certificate or something. But I thought, well, I'll apply anyway. And I got the job, and I did it for 5 years. It was amazing. And I left. I gave like a 6 months notice, and I'm still friends with everybody there. But yeah, it turned out I was very natural at crisis work because I don't panic, you know, like, so if somebody goes down, whether they're ODing or whether it's suicide intervention, whatever's going on, I don't panic. So that comes in really handy for crisis work. You know, you're working with people who usually are marginalized. They have a chaotic, unstable life already, and now they're having their worst day. And then that's what usually when I met them, people coming out of jail after 10 years, whatever it was. So yeah, that's interesting. You noticed that my calm presence.
Let me ask you a question, if you're comfortable even answering. Did you have a stressful childhood?
You know what? You know, I've been very, very privileged. To be honest, my mom struggled with her mental health and her stability. And so, you know, it was a quietly troubled, I would say, right?
So not a lot of drama, but there was stress, but not the commotion associated with certain stresses.
Exactly. It wasn't wild, dramatic events and people throwing things and moving in the middle of the night or whatever. But yeah, there was certainly some struggles for, you know, to keep it calm.
Calm. The reason why I asked you is because I had a very stressful childhood, but I also don't panic, and I have found, you know, it's like foxhole training at age 5. You know, you can handle anything. You know, and people often have had stressful childhoods, or it can go the other way too, where you just always like full of anxiety, but they're typically able to, you know, oh, this is cake, I can handle this, you know.
Yeah, people that have, you know, people that as when they were children, they were like managing their parents' episodes, that sort of thing. That, you know, often those people do become addictions counselors and workers and social workers. Rock and roll also really prepared me for, you know, walking into a hotel room and there's literally 2 guys with machetes, you know, like that wasn't unusual in the world I was in, or, you know, there was a lot of blood and barf and, you know, like that job. And I kind of laugh because I'm still friends with some of the people that I worked with. I'm still friends with some of the clients that
in the crisis center.
Yeah, because I'm in a small community, and I did that job for these 2 rural counties out here. But yeah, the rock and roll also prepared me to do that kind of work because, you know, addictions, mental health. Yeah, you know, it's one of the only jobs where, hey, the singer's here, let's get the Coke, you know, let's get the whatever. Here's the drug.
Yeah.
It's all right there for you, right? So, and I wasn't good at saying no. Yeah. So, you know, I really overindulged, and as I mentioned to you earlier before we got on air here, you know, I really took it for granted. Even the touring in Europe, I had been to Europe 4 or 5 times before I ever saw any of it. I was like asleep on the tour bus all day, doing the show, you know, waking up, doing the show, having the dinner, whatever it was, and partying all night, and then, you know, crashing out at 5 a.m. during the drive to the next city. I didn't see any of Europe the first 4 or 5 times I went.
How did you snap out of that? Or like, did you get sober, or did you just say, hey, I'm going to just chill out, or moderation, or?
You know, it was life. You know, my first marriage broke up in California. And my first wife brought our 2 sons to Canada, and I followed 8 months later. Let's see, no, that was June that happened, and then November 18th, actually, 1994, I came to Canada, and literally with a few $100 and a guitar and no hat to keep me warm, and I got, you know, I ended up homeless and was taken in by strangers, basically, literally. So, you know, it was like starting over again in a new country, and having to start from a place I'd never been before. So it wasn't even starting over. It was like, you're going to start over in a new life, you know? And, you know, it took me a few years, but then at some point I was like, okay, I gotta get this together here, because I've got at the time, you know, 2 young sons.
Sure.
And just, you know, I wanted to be in their lives. And so that's really what inspired me to like start getting healthier, getting back to some health that I had had earlier in my life, you know? So that was my inspiration for that, really. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I mean, we're starting this off pretty deep here. I don't know how your show's.
No, I normally don't, to be honest. We normally it's like you go on a date. You don't like to get undressed right away, right? You just like have dinner and drinks. Right? So usually we have dinner and drinks. Yeah.
I mean, it's your show.
Man, just be you. If you're comfortable, I'm comfortable, man. Just be you. If you want me to start back off, that's, you know.
I will, I'll preface this by saying, like, you do something that I really appreciated. And that's, you send a little about yourself,
Yeah.
And I appreciate that so much. And I have tuned into a couple of your broadcasts to kind of see how you do it.
Right.
And what I saw was, and I appreciate so much, is it's much more of a conversation than like an interview. It doesn't, it comes across.
Thank you.
Because I see what you do. You have a conversation with people. You and I talked for 30 minutes before you turned on the record button here. So I do appreciate that kind of approach, right? And that allowed me to kind of see where some of your priorities are.
Right.
The kind of things that are priorities for you line up with the kind of things that are priorities for me. So,
well, let me tell you more.
Okay.
My 2 sons are from my first marriage.
Ah.
I was like fascinated. I'm like, holy shit, this is like my brother from another mother here. It's quite funny. I mean, now we both have very long-term second marriages. That's wild.
Yeah. True. Huh?
Yeah.
My mom tried to shoot one of her husbands before she married my dad. How about yours?
No, I wish she would have shot my father, to be honest with you, though. We probably would have been a lot calmer life. As morbid as that sounds, something needed to be done.
Yeah, my mom didn't try to shoot my dad, but she tried to shoot. She had I believe she had 5 husbands before my dad, which was indicated kind of where her
stability.
So. But the gun misfired, so that's good. I wasn't born in jail. I wasn't.
Wow.
I wasn't on the way yet when all that happened. But anyway, sorry.
No, it's all good. I'm just like blown away. I'm just like, holy shit! I wasn't expecting to open like this. It just like, it just, when you said the crisis center, I was like, well, let me follow, because I found that, because I like that kind of work. I've always tried to volunteer for stuff like that, but it never, I've never found like the right opportunity, or the time wasn't good, because because coming from crisis, I think I'm pretty good with understanding how people are thinking and what they're dealing with. And I understand, I'm blessed, lucky, whatever you want to call it, that I have coping skills, or that I worked on getting better coping skills, and other people may not be able to do that, or it may not be their time to do that. So I think that's I think it's a kind and cool thing to do at the same time.
It's funny you mentioned the volunteering, because I used to, I had a friend. Well, I still have a friend. My friend James Moon. He used to do, every year at Christmas, he would do an event at a local kind of restaurant / bar venue, and they would you just get a bunch of musicians to come out, and we'd all play, and we'd donate a couple CDs each, and they would get auctioned off, and they would raise funds, and they would buy a bunch of food for one of the local food banks. And this was quite a few years ago, probably 15, 16, 17 years ago. And I remember, like, I would literally show up with 2 CDs and I would donate them. And then people would bid, $100 or whatever, which was really cool to do.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then people would come up to me and they'd want to like shake my hand. They'd want to pat me on the shoulder and say, like, you are so amazing that you do this. You're helping to feed people, and it's so incredible what you do. And I was like, oh, cool, thanks. And then I remember, like, you know, the second year, third year, fourth year, I was like, I am literally devoting 15 minutes of my year to CDs, and people are treating me like I'm a saint.
Yeah.
And it really started to weigh on me. And, you know, I started to feel guilty about it. And so that's what got me to we still have this youth center in our little town. And like, I didn't want my kids to go there because all the kids out front were like spitting and smoking and cursing. And I didn't want my little kids around that, you know. But at some point I volunteered. They were doing like a kind of a reopening of the center. They had done some renovations inside. And I went and volunteered to paint some chairs. I had never volunteered for anything like that, you know, that involves sitting somewhere for hours painting chairs. And I liked it. And then, you know, my wife liked it. And when they reopened, I volunteered. I said, hey, like I could run a martial arts workshop, or I could do something with music. You know, I don't know.
You're a martial arts. You're a martial artist.
I've been interested in that. Yeah. Forever. Right. So
you practice?
You know, probably not what some people would consider practice now, but yes.
That's awesome.
I certainly think about it, and it's part of my life, right? So same with meditation, you know, I would say, you know, do I practice meditation? Not in the way that some people would consider, oh, I have a meditation practice, you know? So, yeah. But anyway, so then that was just naive. I just thought, oh, I could volunteer. Well, then what happened was, you have to be careful when you volunteer. I learned, because what happened was, then I started, eventually I was doing every Sunday, I was doing a music workshop. We're doing like Tuesdays and Thursdays. We were doing Jeet Kune Do. We were doing martial arts there.
That's Bruce Lee's. Yeah.
It's basically a fighting system. But, and then I never really knew other people's kids really that much. And then I was like, oh, these kids are kind of cool, right? And like now some of them have kids. I still know so many of those kids because it's a small town. And I really liked it. And then the director there, he said, hey, you know, at the time I was driving an hour every day to go, or 5 days a week to go work in Hamilton, Ontario in a recording studio. And he goes, you know, do you want me to see if I could get you paid, and you could, you know, get paid for the hours you're doing out here? Maybe you could drive less, you know, and you could just be getting paid to work here. And I was like, oh, that'd be amazing. So anyway, his title was program manager. He ran the place, the youth center. And so I got hired as the assistant to the program manager. Within a couple months, he needed to go take care of his business, which was in another city. And suddenly I was the acting program manager, which was not martial arts and music. It was dealing with probation officers and foster parents and grandparents. This is kind of our little downtown core. It was the higher needs kids, right? The kids that were struggling. Those were the kids that came to the center. It was like their home away from home. Sometimes it was their one safe place, right? So, so that, you know, that began a whole other part of my life that I never thought that a little bit of volunteering to paint some chairs would lead to something like that. But it changed my life, because it turned out I was suited to that kind of work as well, right? And then that is what led me to becoming a crisis worker.
What did you get out of that experience? Like, what was the most important thing or two?
Well, you know, I remember times when we would typically, like, the center wouldn't open like on Christmas Eve. And I remember once I asked my son, Josh, he was probably like 17 at the time. I said, hey, do you want to like open up the center on Christmas Eve and just see, maybe some kids need to come there tonight? Because we used to close the center at night. And sometimes I might be downtown a couple hours later, and it might be a frickin' blizzard. And I'd see some of the youth center kids like waiting for their parents, maybe at a bar. They'd be outside in the snow. This gives me chills. I haven't thought about this for a while, but you know, I lived in Los Angeles with no money. You know, I've had my own struggles, but I saw a side of poverty that I didn't know, you know, and I got to know it intimately through that job and from being a crisis worker. And so, you know, I said, hey, you want to maybe just open up the center on Christmas Eve? And we did. And it just happened. There was 2 kids that had nowhere else to be. And my son and I spent the evening with 2 kids that had nowhere else to be on Christmas Eve. And that's why I did it. Just because, you know, as much as my family might have struggled with some things, we had the knowledge we could go home at night if we or wanted to. It wasn't dangerous for me to be at my house. And I realized, oh, you know, of course, for some kids it's dangerous and it's scary. And we were able to provide an alternative to that.
How tempting was it to like want to say to these kids, hey man, just come back to my place. We'll give you dinner. And
yeah, well, we are still, my wife and I, we're still involved, you know, and a lot of those kids are still in our lives in different ways. You know, like I said, some of them grown up. Of course, we've offered some different kinds of support even throughout this pandemic to some of those, you know, little kids who are now grown up with little kids. You know? So, well, they weren't little kids then. They were more like, they would have been high schoolers, you know, at that time. But now some of them have families, and people are in transition during this pandemic. Obviously, I don't know if you've seen that, but certainly, you know, marriages are breaking up and housing.
Dude, can you imagine if you don't like your wife and you're like, you know, we're in houses, so at least it's like you can go on the patio. Could you imagine you're like in New York City in a 700 square foot apartment and you hate this person and they hate you, and oh, your 2 school-age kids are home and you got to homeschool on top of it and do all your work? That is fucking stress.
As much as I love kids, I've said it actually, you know, I don't mind the fact that the kids are grown up now. You know,
of course. Yeah. I get it.
Think how it would be, like you said, maybe in an apartment. I mean, people are struggling, you know. I've got it so easy. Sounds like you do.
Comparatively, yes, man.
Comparatively, we have, you know, I have a roof over my head.
Yeah.
I have an amazing wife, and we are absolutely best friends, and we're doing pretty damn good. We can both work at home. Yeah. You know, I'm making tons of music, you know, with people I love. So I got no complaints. I'm blessed.
Now let's start the interview. Thank you for sharing all that. That was really cool, man. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I feel like, how can I go back to the first question now? But I will.
Please do.
Yeah. How'd you first get started in music? What was your first break?
Well, I mentioned my dad had an unbelievable voice. My dad has such a beautiful voice. And he used to sing all the time, listening to the radio or the 8-track cassette or whatever that was called, the 8-track tapes, cartridges in the car even. That was big news when we got one of those in the car. But he had a beautiful voice, and my mom had fantastic taste in music. So it was always like Mahalia Jackson, gosh, I'm blanking on, Aretha Franklin. I couldn't think of her name.
So lots of R&B?
Yeah, and gospel. You know, and sometimes that gospel was, you know, just so greasy and so good, you know. The good stuff always is.
Yeah.
But so I got to hear amazing music growing up, and that's where it all started. And again, we sang in the house. My my cousin's family, my older cousins that I kind of worshiped, they were like probably 4 or 5 years older at least. And they to me were like rock stars. You know, one of them was in a band. Well, they were all in bands at different times. And they were super talented. You know, my cousin Skip was in the traveling company of the play, the musical Hair.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Like a rock star.
Big time. Yeah.
They came and toured through Southern California, and I didn't get to see the show, of course, because they said some bad words and there was some nudity, and that would have perverted me, but
oh, how things have changed, you know.
but yeah, he was touring with, you know, and some of the people I think that had even written the musical, Jerome, what was his name? Jerome Ragney, and I can't remember the other person's name. There was like 3 of them that wrote it. And so anyway, yeah, I was very much surrounded by music as a little kid, and as soon as I could get a guitar, I was about 8 years old. I got a guitar. My parents got me a Silvertone from Sears, you know, which is like the typical, well, that's where you could buy a guitar then if you were a kid that wanted to, you know, learn how to play. So they bought me a guitar, and then, you know, my own musical, you know, then I started listening to, you know, pretty much starting with the Beatles, because I remember, because my dad didn't like them, and I was like, this is my music, you know. I remember him like making faces, you know, when the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show, and I was like, all right, this is good. So yeah, starting off with the Beatles, and then, you know, that kind of as they progressed and got wilder and more experimental, then it, well, what's this band I hear about? Led Zeppelin, right? You mentioned Zeppelin. It's like, and that, of course, like for so many people, that was like a real turning point in my life. Was just like, then it was, you know, Deep Purple and, you know, whatever, Creedence Clearwater Revival, and just from there, and then singer-songwriters, James Taylor, Jackson Browne, you know, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, you know, my world just like anybody my age, and I'm sure, you know, same for you, and probably even to today, I know my daughter's always sending me new music. So, you know, it's just unending, the stuff we can discover as we go along. So, and I just gravitated towards it, right?
And what was how did you first get in the business?
Well, like just about everything else in my life, just basically an accident. You know, I was super shy as a young person. I mean, I actually still am, but
so I mean, that's pretty common. People are surprised to hear that. How many, even frontmen, like yourself, where you think are basically shy people, and some guys I've talked to, they're like, I love what I do, and it's like a chance for me to step out in character, but I'm wiped out at the end of a show because I am shy, and it really takes a lot out of me. Is that something similar for you, or? It
is very much so. So I had you know, in high school, I was probably in 11th grade, I think. And, you know, I carried around an acoustic guitar, and I had really long hair. And these guys in our town were looking, this was when I was a senior, and they were looking for a singer. And it happened to be that it was, the guy at my high school was a guy named Robin Crosby, who ended up in a band called Rat. You know that band. Yeah. We were a little beach community, but we had an amazing musical.
And this is in San Diego.
Yeah, this is in La Jolla, California, which is like a suburb of San Diego.
Okay.
This was like 1976, 77, yeah. And, you know, I would play music for my girlfriend. That was one thing. But if I was going to play a song for her friends, I'd make them put like a blanket over their heads, and I would play a song. So here I go to audition for a band. I have no idea, how do you sing with a band? I didn't know, you know. And we went to the bass player's house, and they were interested in me because I had a guitar and long hair. And then they were like, yeah, you got the gig. And I was like, okay, great. And that was it. I like fell into the music business because, you know, right away we started out, everything's been so easy for me, to be honest, in the music world. And it was just like, you know, first
easy or organic?
Both, in a way. I've really just kind of, if you believe in being like water, if you believe in going with the flow, it's been easy. I haven't fought it. I'm just like, oh, okay, what's this? This looks interesting. This looks good. This person interests me musically, whatever it was. And I'd say yes. Maybe my superpower is saying yes. But yeah, so that first band, it was called Phenomenon. And like very quickly we were playing, our first gig was in front of 500 people at an outdoor party. I kept my eyes Yeah, I know.
That's some people don't get a 500 people gig for 3, 4, 5 years into their career.
That's what I'm saying, right? I had my eyes closed, just squinting at the, my eyes closed at the microphone, singing. And that's kind of where, from there, we just got really cool gigs and really shitty gigs. And those are equally valuable, of course, right? And, and then we were about 3 hours from Los Angeles. So that band, and I don't think we ever made it to LA, that band. But, as the bands changed and we intermingled with different bands and got new bands, then it was like, oh, maybe we could go to LA and get a gig, and then you start to do that. And then eventually the record labels and managers start coming down from LA to see you play in a little club in San Diego. And yeah, I was in the right place at the right time. The music scene in my little community was amazing. This little beach community of La Jolla. It's like a village. And then, moving out into the larger kind of San Diego music scene, like fully thriving scene with like Jake Williams, who's Jakey Lee from Ozzy's band and Badlands. He was in like a rival band to one of my bands, and Warren DeMartini from Rad. And, there was so many like killer players, and Stevie Salas, who's still my friend since we were teenagers. These like amazing players, amazing singers. We had like a world-class, this guy named Rick Reed was a singer in a band called Child, and like world-class rock dude, and I could just go see him when I was 16 years old and like, say something dumb to him or whatever at the end of the show, because I was just so nervous. And but like world-class talent. Then I moved to LA again, just like into a thriving music scene, completely failed at it and slunk back down to San Diego with our tails between our legs.
What happened?
The first time I moved up there, we just didn't know what we were doing. I was in a band called Mac Meda with Robin Crosby. I'm trying to think who else was in the band. Nobody else that you would know, I guess. A friend of mine, great friend of mine, Ronnie Jones, was the other guitar player in that band. He was in a band called Black Bambi. They had a record deal through Atlantic. Just a killer.
That sounds like a porn, man, a porn flick.
Black Bambi?
Yeah.
Actually, I have their record right in the kitchen. Someone sent it to me the other day. But
that's wild.
Just these like, again, killer players, and we had some good songs, but we didn't know how to get a gig.
Yeah.
So we lived in LA for like 10 months, got like 2 gigs, one at a community center and one, I think like lunchtime at a school or something. So we just didn't know how it worked, so we went back to San Diego and, kind of regrouped, and, you have to pay for the good gigs. It was $500 to get a good slot at the Troubadour or the Whiskey, Gazzari's, the Country Club. Everywhere was $500.
I don't think that's changed from what I've heard. Has it?
That's either. No, I don't think it has. Basically, you got $500 worth of tickets. You could hand them out for free to people, or you could sell them, whatever.
Yeah.
You had to commit to like turning in $500 before the gig to the venue, to the promoter. So once we realized that, then that changed. Then we started getting, we figured out a way to start getting some gigs, and then that just led to more gigs. Eventually the band I was in then, called Aircraft, we were like one of the favorite bands at Gazzari's. So we got to play in front of a lot of people, and, got to, play at the Whiskey and the Troubadour, all that kind of stuff, good slots.
Yeah.
The slots that you got to do more than get the $500 for. You got to be, really good and have a good, following and have some buzz. And I got to do all that kind of stuff, right? Which was amazing. And, I said it was easy, and in a way, and it was, even going up there and learning some lessons, there was no pain involved. We just went up there, realized we didn't know what the hell we were doing, and like I said, slunk back to San Diego 10 months later. No harm, no foul, maybe to our egos, but
yeah,
that's probably only helpful in the long run. That's probably helpful, that kind of stuff, right? That's how I see it nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, any lessons is helpful.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, back to something you said earlier. You said, jokingly, but I know that you were serious about it. You said, if you believe in flowing like water, again, because Bruce Lee, I mentioned that earlier, your practice. Were you always like that?
No, because there was a time when, out of frustration, it's funny because I haven't thought about this for a long time, but there was a time where, out of frustration, where I got really hardcore about, because I wanted to have a music career.
Right.
And at some point, I think I blamed other players in my band, as an example, for that not happening maybe in the timing I thought it should or could. Now I can see the timing was amazing. It was fantastic. And humility is, again, that there's another superpower, right? Is some humility. But at the time I had no interest in that. And it was so competitive in LA. It brought something out of me that I had never felt before. And that was like, that saying, lead or follow or get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah.
I literally said that to some of my bandmates there was a couple year period there where I got really hardcore, because in LA it was dog eat dog, literally. I remember the second time I moved to LA, I remember the first day, and my first wife and I went to the store. We got an apartment in Studio City, and I went to the grocery store. I don't remember. I think it was a Ralph's. And
it's just a funny name for a grocery store. Sorry.
No. And I had my goods, whatever they were. It's like our first night in the apartment, Fruitland Drive, right there in North Hollywood, Studio City, North Hollywood. And somebody's packing up my groceries, when they used to have bag people or whatever. And I look, and the guy looked like Sebastian Bach. He had like long hair. He had on like bracelets, silver, and he was wearing like a Ralph's apron, and he, earrings, probably I was like, whoa. And then I looked down, and the next box person, or whatever they call him, box boy in the next aisle, same thing. The next one. And then I looked, and I'm like, holy shit. Like everybody bagging groceries looks like a rock star.
This is the rock star graveyard.
Oh my God. I remember walking home, and I was just like, oh no, what am I doing here? Like, this is.
Yeah, that's gotta be scary.
Yeah.
And you were married young.
Well, it
sounds like, anyway.
I was in my 20s.
That's pretty young.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, nowadays, back then, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
But now, like, nobody even gets married, but yeah.
Good point. But what I learned really quickly was, if you can sing or if you can write, that to me was like, those were my jewels, that anybody want to play with this, because there was these people that look like rock stars, but could they write a song? That's that not everybody could. And could they sing, like really sing? And I found out very quickly, there was a demand for it. Right.
Yeah.
So, again, I just, sort of discovered that on my own. You just learn stuff. I'll never forget that moment of seeing like rock stars to the left of me and rock stars to the right of me
in Ralph's.
Yeah. And, that's a pretty stark, example.
It's scary, man, to be honest with you. Like, if you're there on your own with your wife, that you're, as a guy, you're thinking, oh, I got to take care of this person and this family, and then you're looking around and like, wow, that's going to be hard to take care of anybody.
Pay our rent if these guys are bagging groceries.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I also learned pretty quickly that a lot of those guys were, of course, they were working construction. They were working in unloading trucks. I got a job doing that, because you got to bankroll your musical dreams too, right? And
definitely,
probably naively thinking, hey, I can sing and I can write. Stuff should be happening pretty quick, you know, and then the reality is, oh, that doesn't pay the bills, of course. So, you know, I joined the ranks of my friend Stevie actually got me a job working for Yellow Freight.
Okay.
At a big, like, it was like a giant building, and they didn't store anything there, but they just transferred stuff from one truck to another. Half of this truck is toys and it's going in that truck, and the other half of the first truck is, you know, wheelbarrows, and it's going in that truck over there, that trailer. So, yeah, that was kind of my start, though, of
So you and Stevie Salas were working together doing that?
Yeah, well, he got the job. He had been doing it. By then, he was probably already writing and producing records, actually.
Okay.
But it was like his first job in LA, and he was like,
Gotcha.
By the way, I spoke to him on the phone 20 minutes before I talked to you. Like, we're still friends after being in rival bands in San Diego.
That's funny, man.
Teenagers. Yeah, he was like, hey, man, it was my first gig, you know, my first real job in LA, but if you don't want to work, you don't have to, you know, it's one of those kind of casual labor kind of things. It was kind of perfect, right? For somebody that might have a gig and not want to be down there at 7 a.m. unloading trucks. You could occasionally take a day off. It was no big deal. I don't even know if we had schedules, but it was.
And they probably paid you better than Ralph's did.
Yeah. You got paid. You might've even gotten cash. I don't remember, but yeah, it was a good gig, right? It was a good start. It was probably $10 an hour or something.
Yeah. But which was when minimum wage is $2.90 or $3, $10 is like a lot of money. Yeah.
It was fantastic. And, you know, and you're young and you're willing to work your ass off, and it just feels good. It's not like it's a problem. So
yeah. Wow. I'm going to skip forward.
Mm-hmm.
How did Riverdogs come together initially and then get back together?
So that
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm saying, what have been the biggest challenges about that band? I mean, it's just such a tremendous band.
So that band actually, so I moved up to LA that second time, did much better. Again, got in bands and did some stuff and, you know, had all kinds of interest from labels and managers, and really good stuff was happening, and got offered a couple record deals, you know, and got, hey, here's $30,000 to demo some songs or whatever. You know, they were kind of throwing around money then. And just everywhere we turned, just more opportunities. Here's some money, you know, that sort of thing. But this band that I was in called Aircraft, you know, we just had some internal issues. No, just people in the band had maybe personal issues. We all did, really. I mean, we all had different ones, basically. A bunch of crazy dudes coming together being a rock band. And so each time we would get like, okay, now we've got like Van Halen's manager, Ed Leffler, wants to manage us, and John Carter, who's the head of Chrysalis Records, wants to give us, you know, a record deal starting at $300,000. You know, we could basically write the contract, as he said at the time. But each time we would get to that point, the band would implode. And, you know, and for good reasons. People, various of us, some of the gang wasn't ready to really get into that crazy big leagues, you know. I probably wasn't ready, but I didn't know it. So I was always going like, well, come on, man. Like I said, lead follower, get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah.
So again, probably one of those blessings in disguise. So when that happened, like for the second time with that band, Aircraft, and we got so close and literally had people offering us record deals and serious management and all that. Then at that point, I moved southwards, went down to Orange County, and I was working with Nick Brophy, who became the bass player and or guitar player in Riverdogs. And we were just like, okay, we were so close. He was in that band Aircraft. And I said, okay. You know, we just said, hey, we were so close. We're on the right track. Let's live in Orange County. Let's just write songs. Let's focus on songs, which was always ultimately kind of our thing. And we just worked on songs. We just started writing songs. He was programming a little drum machine, and he was playing bass and guitar, and I was playing guitar and singing, and we were writing songs. And then we got a call from LA. We'd only been gone for a couple of months. And we got a call from the drummer of Aircraft who said, hey, I'm in this band called Riverdogs. And they've got a great manager. They got some money. The guitar player from Whitesnake, Vivian Campbell, is producing our demos. We've got money. You can get on a salary, you know, but we need a singer and a bass player. And I said, well, I'll come up and meet the manager and meet the band if there's a possibility that Nick could come along as bass player, because they had a guitar player who had started the band back in.
Oh, you mean besides Vivian, they had another guitar player?
Yeah, Vivian wasn't in the band. He was producing the demo.
He was just producing the demo. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but I thought that was cool, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't need a guitar player, but they needed a bass player. So Nick went up, you know, and the idea was that he would play bass if we did this. We met the guitar player, and we met the manager, and we were like, yeah, this sounds good. They got a lot going on. We probably met Viv at that time, I imagine. No, I don't think we met him until we joined the band. But anyway, we were like, yeah, let's do it. Again, we got a salary, and we were like, yeah, great. You're going to pay us to come live in LA and work with Vivian, you know? And so, yeah, that's how we ended up joining the band. Eventually, we were doing pre-production. We were recording demos with Viv. And he started coming to rehearsal with a guitar, and like we'd be working on a song, and then he'd start singing a high harmony with me, you know, over me, and Nick would sing the low one. It's like, oh, this is really working. And, you know, then Viv might play a little guitar, and he was just kind of enjoying playing with us and singing with us. And then one night we were at Steve Vai's house. Steve Vai at the time, I'm sure he still does, had a nice, really nice studio at his house in Beach. I think it was in LA. What were we gonna say?
No, sorry, I had him on here. He's got a really, if it's the same studio he had when he was, yeah.
It was pretty nice.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. It was like a house.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, it was kind of an old house in Beechwood Canyon. But, and then one night after the recording session, Viv said, hey, I want to talk to you about joining your band. And he was getting ready to go to Salt Lake City to work on the next Whitesnake record. They were going to start on the next Whitesnake record, like the next day or something. And he goes, you know, I'd really like to join your band. And it didn't seem like a crazy idea at the time because we had become great friends. And musically he fit so well with what we were doing. And so he said, I'm heading out to Salt Lake City. I'm going to record this record with Whitesnake. I don't think I'm going to tour with them, I think he said, but I'd like to join the Riverdogs. And okay. So I thought that was a great idea because, you know, he's an amazing musician, but he's actually he's more of an amazing human than a musician even. And he's
which is awesome when you get a band. Yeah.
Such a quality human. Right. And, so fairly soon after that, I guess things weren't working out in the Whitesnake camp. And he said, hey, I'm coming back and, let's get a record deal. And, you know, that was pretty easy to do. You know, we had big time attorney. They brought all the labels to our little rehearsal room. We played some songs, you know, we got a record deal, you know, within days, literally, you know, we did maybe 3 or 4 showcases for labels, and a couple of them wanted to sign us, you know, so that was it. That's how Riverdogs came to be. As far as challenges, you know, the only challenges were once we had all left, eventually we all went, Nick moved to Nashville. He's been there for a long time. I came to Canada in 94. Viv went off to go join Def Leppard. He had told us when he joined Riverdogs, he could only afford to do it for maybe a year without making money. And at that point, he'd have to really reevaluate where things were. Because he had a house in the Hollywood Hills, and he had a lifestyle that was, you know, required more income than the rest of us. So, so we had plenty of warning. We knew that discussion would happen if we weren't making some serious cash within a year. So that was all. We parted as friends. Nick picked up on guitar. We made a couple records for a label in Hamburg, Germany. And that's when we started touring, was back in those days. That was in like 91. We started touring over there, and basically I never stopped. My whole career has really been in Europe mostly.
That also, man, that says a lot about Vivian's aspirations and confidence in the band to sit and say, hey, I'm willing, or anybody, you know, I'm willing to sit tight for a year with this thing. That's how, I mean, that's a big commitment.
Yeah. Well, our drummer
I'm willing to go negative for a year to make this happen, basically.
Yeah.
You know,
it's funny because before Viv called me, or before he mentioned it that night at the studio, our drummer at the time, Alan De Silva, said, I think Viv wants to join our band. I was like, are you crazy? Because like the record that he joined after was, you know, Still the Night, and I'm not going to remember the songs now, but I think the record was Slip of the Tongue. It was the biggest. It was the biggest one they had. Yeah. Biggest Whitesnake album, which he wasn't on, but he was in that touring band. And yeah. They were so huge in that moment, right?
I saw that concert at Jones Beach in the early 90s. Yeah, I remember that. That was incredible, man.
That was big rock, right?
Yeah.
So I laughed when Alan said that. He wants to join Riverdogs. I was like, oh, sure he does, buddy. You know, whatever. Come on.
Yeah.
And then it happened. It was amazing. And it was, for us, it was just this huge step up to you know, play with a big league, you know, serious big league player. And, you know, and walking into that world of like management and, you know, and record labels and all that stuff and publishing deals. Woo! You know, I got my first publishing deal. So, you know, that was amazing for us. But he was, you know, he knew what he was doing. He was committing to a year of making. Yeah,
I'm willing to go negative for a year and invest in this thing. I believe in it that strongly. That's a huge.
I know. I don't know of many, you know, players that would do that, but you know, he, like I said, he's an amazing dude, right? So, and we've never made money with Riverdogs. It's never been about money. It's always been about the music, right? So, you know, the challenge came when we all moved. You know, we dispersed, but we stayed friends. So Mark Danzeisen, who was the drummer that joined the band after we made the record with a studio cat, you know, session drummer.
Yeah.
Mark and Nick and Viv and I, we always found a way to get together consistently in all those years after 91, when that original group broke up, or went its separate ways, I should say. No, I moved here in 94. So even after that, though, we stayed in touch, and we got together and had, you know, tacos and beer and and jammed on acoustic guitars, or recorded something. You know, we stayed in touch over the years.
And that was when you had to work to stay in touch.
Yeah, it wasn't as
you couldn't like say, you know, Viv, what's up?
Yeah. No, we weren't able to do that. So yeah, we were committed to it though. We were committed to staying in touch, and never really thought we'll get a chance to make another record. But a label, like a website in Australia, I'm going to forget the name right. Oh, melodicrock.com. They financed, you know, a small budget to compile some songs that we'd already been recording just casually, and a little time to go record a couple new ones. And we released a record called World Gone Mad. Mm-hmm. Which was just kind of a bit of a patch together kind of thing. Because
I'm looking at the cover right now.
Yeah, that was all we had to work with was, well, we got some tracks we did here, some tracks we did there. Let's see if we can make it, you know, let's write some new stuff and record it and see if we can make it into a cohesive record.
And that's the original members.
Yeah, that was all of us. Yeah, including, it wasn't the original drummer, Alan, but it was, you know, Mark, who from the release of the first record was, you know, for as much as we promoted that album in that first year, he was the drummer of record, you might say. And has, you know, and as always, we've all stayed connected all this time. So yeah, we did that, and I think that was 2010. And then in 2016, or maybe it was end of 15, it was right after I retired from crisis work. I thought, I think I'm just going to kind of retire and, live off my laurels. And I wasn't really thinking about diving back into music full time, because I've been doing it part time for 5 years, which was still a lot. I was putting a lot of hours into it.
Yeah, because you're working a full time gig. Anything, going to the gym is a lot of work. I think when you have a full time thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but I did keep my toe in it. But then, I left the job at Salvation Army. I was reaching that level of compassion fatigue, where I'd go to work and I'd ride my bike over to my office, and I'd see someone that was out of jail for like the 5th time in the last 5 years with nothing in their jail coveralls and no ID, no nothing, and they're waiting for me, and I've already been through that and supported them as much as I could 4 or 5 times before. And usually you're just like, hey, let's do this. What do we got to do? You got to see your probation officer tomorrow. Okay, let's do this, let's do that. And I started going to work and feeling like, whew, I started feeling that weight, and like, can I do this? And I thought, I'm getting to that point, that what's called compassion fatigue, and I'm gonna need to do something else. So, like I said, I gave my 6-month notice, and I just thought, I'm just gonna quit the job, and I'm gonna kind of just see what happens. And literally 2 months later, Frontiers in Italy, we get a call from Viv. Hey, Frontiers wants to know if we'd be interested in making a record, with a little bit of a budget.
And this was out of the blue, like, there'd been no Riverdogs push, promo, buzz.
No.
How random, but isn't that random?
It's hilarious. It was so funny. And it wasn't a big budget, but it was enough that we could, get together for some writing, get together for some pre-production, get together and do the recording, do the mixing, do it all.
Where did you all do that? In LA again, or?
We did it all over the place. I mean, and frankly, Nick produced the record and mixed it, and we really had no budget for that. Our budget was basically for travel to get us into the same space at the same time. So yeah, we did pre-production. We rented a friend's house / rehearsal room while they were in England. We camped out in, what's that area called? I'm not going to remember. It's near Echo Park in LA, in the hills, like a house out in the hills. And that's where we got together to do the writing. And then we did, Mark and Nick went and recorded drums. I wasn't there, and Viv wasn't there, at a big studio out in the valley. I can't remember where that was, because we wanted a big drum sound. We wanted a sound like the first record, our debut on Epic. So they went out and did that at some giant studio. I can't remember what it was called. Then we did a bunch of stuff, guitars and some vocals at a place called Serenity West, I think it's called, kind of in the Hollywood foothills, like right at the bottom where where it starts turning into a mountain there. Serenity West is called. And then I went to Nashville to do vocals at Nick's lovely studio at his house in Nashville. And then he mixed it in his studio there. So yeah, we had enough that we could get together and be physically together during the tracking and the recording and the mixing, except for the drum session. Like I said, that was just Nick and Mark going off. And we had already recorded like pre-production stuff at Mark's little studio in Burbank. When we did those songwriting days, we spent 3 days writing and then 2 days just laying down what's the tempo, what's the groove. We were all playing like reference tracks. I was going blah, blah, blah on a microphone, didn't have words yet mostly, or I had some, but.
Wait a minute. So you wrote you wrote the songs and then you wrote the lyrics to the songs?
Yeah, like as we were writing the songs, we literally were just in a room with guitars and ideas on cell phones, little snippets. And we just sat together and played in the little rehearsal room at the house we rented to work in, and for the writing. And as soon as I could, I would try and start singing something. It might be la la.
That's tougher though, isn't it, to write to music? as opposed?
It's not the usual way I might have written, but because I trust the band so much, the people in the band, I was comfortable to just start making shit up, or just something come in my head and I write it down. I was constantly just writing stuff down and singing it. And I was, comfortable enough with my friends that they're going to support that process. So it worked great. And then I still had time to tweak it when I was recording final vocals. I was still tweaking some stuff at Nick's place when we were doing that. Yeah. For that kind of final, it's not quite there. Oh, now it's there kind of thing.
Yeah. That's amazing. I'm just shocked that you weren't live with these guys. It's so hard to imagine that, because, the vibe of the record is so, real, I guess, is the, not that when you're not there, it's not real, but when I close my eyes and I listen to the record, as a listener, I'm seeing all of you guys making the music together.
Well, we wrote it all together, and that makes a big difference, I think. We wrote it together in a room, which we hadn't done in the past. On the debut album, a lot of it was stuff I had written ahead of time. On California, I brought in 2 songs that were pretty much done that I had written with my younger son, who's a killer drummer. And we had written the first 2 songs on the record, American Dream and The Revolution Starts Tonight. We had mostly finished those. I didn't want to totally finish them, but I had recorded like a scratch version of them with drums, electric guitar, and vocals. So I had those lyrics done, actually.
Dude, that opening song, that American Dream, what a killer opening. That's like...
Yeah, the label was like, when they heard it, they said they wanted that as the first single, the video, the first song. And it's a bit tongue-in-cheek because I've always been skeptical of, America and Canada. Wherever I am, I don't just blindly believe, I'm not patriotic in any way. I'm like, hey, show me what you can do. I don't trust you because you're this party or that party. Or
really? You don't trust people just because they say they're trustworthy? That's so weird.
Oh, you might want to. Yeah. So that song really is pretty tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Not everyone got that, which is fine. And if it means something to someone else, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
But we wrote together, and the only thing we didn't really record as a band, the drums, but he had already kind of worked out the drums with all of us in a room in his recording studio.
Right.
And we laid everything down as and we didn't know, maybe that'll be the final drums. Maybe that'll be the final bass. We didn't know. We laid it all down together live in a room, and I just sang in the room as much of the lyrics that I had. And then, we were all felt like, okay, we have a direction for this song. All of these songs. So Nick and Mark, you guys go do the drums. Viv and I don't need to be there. We're watching the budget, of course.
Yeah.
And and then when we did guitars and I think we did some vocals, maybe we just did guitars and some bass. I don't remember. But anyway, we got together at Serenity West. It was the 4 of us all together in the room, like cheering Viv on as he was doing his solos.
He's got some... The guitar on there is pretty phenomenal, man. I got to tell you.
Yeah, he's such an amazing player, and he's never like, "Hey, where's the solo? Like, let's make sure we leave a spot." He doesn't. If you wrote a song without a solo, he wouldn't think about it. I don't imagine he would give a shit. But it was fun to give him some space to like, hey, man, like on American Dream, the solo kind of goes as long as a good rock solo might. And then it goes twice as long, and then it goes around one more. It's like a 3-part long guitar solo, because that's what he played. He just like, oh, let's give this guy some room. He
uses a. Sorry, Rob. He uses uses the wah really well in that whole record, man.
Yes,
that was really cool.
A lot of times. And on that record, actually, that's the only pedal he used. He had one pedal, and it was the wah. He didn't go through a bunch of other stuff, He had a little chorus that he used, a rack mount chorus, this little loft unit. But that was it. He's not going through a big switching setup or, which is amazing because I've seen him with the Bradshaw rig, you know, with the 2 giant racks and the giant pedal board, you know, and I've seen him with a wah-wah pedal. Last in line, it's the same. He has a wah-wah and that's it.
Yeah, I tend to gravitate more towards that stuff, and me personally, I like that. I think that's one of the appeals of the record. It was very raw, and it just sounded great, man.
Yeah, you know, there's an acoustic guitar on just about every song. I play a cleaner guitar on just about every song.
Were you playing your telly?
I was playing a Montreal, a Godin, 2 Godin, a Montreal Premier with a Bigsby, and a Godin Fifth Avenue Uptown with a Bigsby. And I really just borrowed those. I endorse Godin guitars, so I can just kind of get them anywhere. I can, like, if I'm going to Europe, they'll have some guitars available for me there. If I'm going to Nashville or LA, same thing. I can go pick up 3 or 4, you know, a couple of electrics and an acoustic. So I was just using those guitars, but then afterwards I was like, okay, I have to get these guitars now because I love them so much. So actually, that's my Montreal Premier behind me there.
Let me see that.
I'll show you.
Thanks.
Which is plugged in because it's kind of my main guitar.
That's your go-to. So that is like, that's kind of like, is it like a Les Paul with F-holes, or is it more?
Maybe like
looks a little thicker. Like,
kind of vibe, right?
Right.
But with just with a cutaway.
Yeah.
You're looking.
Pretty cool guitar, man.
I love it. It's my main guitar, but.
And that's called I'm sorry.
Montreal Premier. And then I've got the Godin Fifth Avenue. The Uptown is like a little higher end model, I guess. I've got a white one over there. And then, those are my main 2 electrics. Although I have a couple more that are Godins that are amazing as well, you know, with different pickup configurations, that sort of thing. One that is a bit of a nod to a telly. That's become another one of my main guitars, actually. And then for acoustics, I've got 2 of the Seagulls that are made by Godin.
Yeah, that's a Godin too.
Right? So, well, you know a bit about the Godin story because we know Mario.
Yeah.
But the Seagulls, I got 2 of those, the mini jumbos. They're amazing, and they have killer pickups in them. They sound so good plugged in. Probably the best plugged in acoustic I've ever heard. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, I know they
set up for guitars. Just a rack of Godins over there I'm looking at right now.
It's great, man. If that's what you're like, if that floats your boat, you know.
Oh, it sure does. Yeah.
Was most of the work, you've spent a lot of time in Europe, is most of that your solo stuff, or is it and the River Heals herself, or?
It started out with Riverdogs, where we did that debut, you know, which won an Edison Award in the Netherlands, which is like a Grammy in the Netherlands.
Dude, I've had some killer players from the Netherlands and Sweden on my show. There are some tremendous rock musicians there.
I'm not surprised. And like amazing studios, amazing bands. I have so many friends over there. And I had a band actually that was a self-contained band called Bitter Moon, and I produced a couple songs on one of their records in the early 90s. And then for years, they were my touring band in Europe. And I would just tell them, hey, we're going to do these songs. And I'd show up and I don't know if we might have rehearsed before one tour, but I'd just show up and they'd be ready to go. We're all still friends and we all still play together, but when we can. But so we did that. The debut kind of launched the Riverdogs, you know, in kind of mainstream press in the Netherlands, which also, you know, which led to us getting this deal on a tiny independent label called Dream Circle. That was based in Hamburg, Germany. So I'm just turning off my phone. So we then released, I think it was like end of 91, 92, we released a record called Absolutely Live. And then we released a record, which was live in a rehearsal room with a bunch of friends and some beer and pizza. No overdubs and some great songs. And then we did a studio record in my guest house, basically in Simi Valley, outside in Ventura County, there outside of LA, and that was called Bone. So those records really kind of set up the rest of my career in Europe. And again, like I said, I kind of go with the flow. So, there's an audience in Europe. Well, I'm going to go there. I wasn't worried about trying to build an audience in America or Canada, for that matter. I just never worried about it. I just, well, there's an audience there, I'll go there, right?
Yeah.
So,
and you're not alone. Plenty of guys do that.
Yeah.
They like what? Tell me about "And the River Reveals Herself," because that's the name itself is pretty deep.
Well, there's a line in one of the songs that's on there. Gosh, I actually just posted that song on Facebook today, coincidentally.
Now, who's in this band? This is you and your 3 kids.
This is myself, yep, and my 2 sons and my daughter. I just want to look and see. The line is.
So let me ask you this, as a dad, while you're looking that up.
Sure.
Do the same dynamics you have in the house go when you're working together as a band?
Well, it's the same thing in my world, right? Like, my kids were raised in rehearsal rooms, in recording studios, at festivals. It's just a normal part of our lives. I've always had a studio in my house. I did in Simi Valley. And then I lived in Hamilton for 10 years. My wife and I did. And we've been out here in the boonies for since 2005, but I've always had a studio. So music is it's just part of our lives and my kids' lives. And so it was so never.
They've already grown into these roles. Okay. This wasn't a new thing for you. Like, hey, let's now play music together. Okay, this would be like no different than how you act. How my kids may act when we go to the movies or out to dinner. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Totally normal.
Very much so. So, as an example, my daughter, my sons were always obsessed with music, but my daughter was like, she loved to listen to music, but she wasn't interested in learning an instrument or singing. We'd hear her singing in the bathroom or in the shower. We'd be like, I'd be like, shit, she's got a good voice. And then when I think she was 15, she asked for a guitar for Christmas, because I was tempted to push her to get her a guitar at 8. And actually she got some lessons at 8 from our friend Jacob, now that I think of it. But it didn't stick, or she wasn't that interested. So we just left it. And then when she was 15, she said, yeah, could I get a guitar for Christmas? So we got her one. We got her little Art and Lutherie, made by Godin. We got a little guitar. And literally, that was Christmas, whatever, the year she was 15. And literally 5 months later, she went on a tour with me in Europe and played guitar on a couple songs and sang harmonies on some songs. But when we were doing the rehearsal for those shows in Europe, I think we did Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium. I think we did, it was 7 or 8 shows, just a small trip. It was mostly, my wife went as well, which was unusual.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was a little family vacation. But when we were doing the rehearsals in this room I'm sitting in right now, with the 4 of us, I realized, we play together like a band. We think like a band. We share like a band. We communicate like a band. And that was where the seed kind of got planted in my head. We should make a record, And so that's how that all came together. It was really kind of that simple,
What a cool thing, I could see the kids in school. Yeah, well, my dad's a rock star, so we made a record. That kind of thing. Not, you know what I mean? Not like in an ego way, but like that's what you brought to. That's your like superpower that you brought to the table for them. You know what I mean?
It's funny because I sang them to sleep, all of 3 of them, night after night after night after night. And I'd go sing at their schools and try to, find one of my songs that didn't have a bad word in it, or that wasn't about drugs and, or that didn't involve, a drug reference at least.
Daddy, what is recovery?
It was so normal for them though, right? It was like, I think it was later when they kind of realized, you know, it's hard to say because they've just grown up in it. So like when my kids were little, they would go like on stage at a Def Leppard sound check, you know, when they were little. When my daughter was like 2, so it wasn't weird. And, you know, my sons were at the time, you know, 5 and 9 or whatever. They'd always been around that. And so, and they would hear me doing an interview with, you know, a radio station in France or something, you know, and so it's just part of their lives.
Yeah.
But I think also at some point, I know that 2 of my daughter and my younger son have really kind of expressed to me, like, it was, you know, it was pretty cool to have a dad that was, you know, kind of cool singer-songwriter guy. I don't know if they ever said I was cool, but, you know, it did, and it continues to lead to, you know, chances for us to collaborate on something and to talk about things. We have so much in common because we all have that common kind of musical, you know, we're just raised in the air of music, right? So, or they were. So it is something that really connects me with my 3 kids still.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
In fact, yeah.
And that's what, and the River Reveals itself is with you guys. That's the project.
Yeah, we basically, so the way I love to work, which was there was no end goal. I didn't know if I would release it. I didn't know. I didn't care. I was like, you know, we tried writing a few things and it was so effortless. And we just went with it, right? And it was just, you know, we weren't all together all the time because my daughter's been out of the house since she was for like 5 years and my son's longer than that. So, you know, but when there was a chance to get together with all of them or one of them or 2 of them or whatever, we'd work. Hey, you want to work on something? You know, my daughter might come out for 3 nights, and one of those nights I'd say, do you want to maybe work on something? Throw harmonies down. And that's kind of, we just built it over like a three-year period probably.
That's cool.
And the goal was just to make something beautiful. I say goalless, but really I wanted to make something beautiful.
I understand what you mean. There was no business goal associated with it other than like, you know, let's create this, whatever happens to it, we'll worry about it then. But you know, the goal is to work on a project together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
that's,
you know, and then my tour manager in the Netherlands, he said, hey, you're making a record with your kids, and he had already met 2 of them over there. And so he said, do you want to, you know, he said, can I hear it? And I sent him some songs, and he said, well, why don't we release a record? You know, let's release it and come over and tour. And so in late October, early November 2018, I went over with my son Josh, who had not been to Europe yet. He had really struggled earlier in his life with you know, drugs and alcohol, and I was afraid to take him anywhere really. But he's been clean for years now, and I said, hey, why don't you and I, you know, you want to go to Europe? You can see what it's like. We'll play some shows. We'll make it, you know, not too hectic. We'll have some relaxed shows, and we'll release this record. And that's what we did.
And it came out, and you had a great time, I'm sure.
Yeah, we had an amazing tour. He did beautifully. We had, I think it was 10 shows in the first 9 days.
Oh, that's so busy.
Yeah, he chose to miss one of those. It was like a second show of the day, Belgium in the afternoon, and back in somewhere in the Netherlands that night for a late night thing that I did. And I told him, hey, like, you've never toured, so just take it easy, do what you want to do, hang out with people or not, whatever you feel like. So it was an amazing, amazing tour. And we released this record. It got killer reviews on like hard rock magazines, and it was wild. It got such good reviews, and it was such a, you know, it's not an easy listen. I don't think it's challenging. You know, it's a weird, beautiful record. But yeah, it was a real high point for me. Was releasing that album and touring with Josh. That was pretty amazing. And I got so sick on that trip. I had like basically the worst flu, lung infection I've ever had in my life. It was like a combination that I thought I was going to die. I look at pictures of myself. I look like I'm.
Where this was in the Netherlands, or just where were you?
Well, it was when, we were kind of darting around Netherlands and Belgium, and then I went off to go do some shows in Germany on my own. But yeah, the beginning of it, I was so sick, but
nothing's worse than being sick not in someone else's bed, man. It's just,
I know,
it's just awful.
Oh, it was I'm seeing a reflection here. Oh, it's my hair.
Yeah, I don't have that issue, man. Sorry.
Though, because a couple of things that I could let Josh do some of the heavy lifting. He could sing the chorus of a Riverdog song like Baby Blue, and I could harmonize with him, but he could do the harder part, right? And also, I was really sick, and I could.
Oh, this was, and while you were doing,
yeah,
I thought it was before so you still had to do these shows. Oh yeah, my God.
We did these shows, and I was really very ill. And like the pictures, I looked terrible. Holy crap. But I also kind of celebrate that. I'm like, wow, that was amazing, because I also had to find new places in my voice and new ways of singing. And I've learned how to compensate when you're tired or when you got a cold or something, because you don't just take work off when that happens. So, but this was a different kind of, this was like really ill. So it was gratifying though to be there with my oldest son after all he'd been through.
Yeah.
Figure out how are we going to do this? How are we going to make these shows amazing? And people were bringing, like Riverdogs fans from the early 90s were bringing their little kids to come sit on the stage while we played these songs.
That is cool.
They listened to these little kids, like listen to Riverdogs or my solo stuff when they're going to sleep at night or whatever, right? Because their parents are fans. And I felt like, man, we got a responsibility here. We got to this has to be special, right? And we pulled it off. We did it. It was amazing.
Can I ask you a question? You aren't kidding about you don't like to pitch yourself. How many, in your own bio, how many solo records do you have?
I would literally have to go look at the SoundCloud or the Bandcamp page. I'm going to do that right now.
I feel embarrassed, but I'm like, wait a minute, he didn't tell me. How would I know?
No,
but I want to people want to know.
People don't know, and I don't say it. So the Riverdogs had those 3 records originally. Riverdogs had 5 full albums. And then I did, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 full-length solo albums, but also like EPs and singles in addition to that as well. So that's just my solo stuff and the Riverdog stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's a hell of a catalog.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, actually. Yeah.
Top 3 experiences you've had musically.
Well, for sure, one of them would have to be doing that tour with Josh. I mean, he was born with congenital lobar emphysema, and he had 2 issues in his heart. He had some brain atrophy. He had lung surgery at 2 months of age at Cedars-Sinai in LA. He had open heart surgery when he was 3.
Oh my God.
Every reason that he shouldn't have survived that. And I was there. I lived in the ICU, pediatric intensive care unit, when he was in a coma after the first.
Was he a preemie?
He looked like one. What happened was, people sometimes get their cord wrapped around them, the umbilical cord.
Yeah.
When he was born, his umbilical cord just fell apart. It wasn't getting enough nutrition, let alone him getting enough nutrients. And so he was born in distress, and he actually lost weight in the womb, which is unusual. That's
it's scary.
Yeah. So he wasn't a preemie, but he looked, medically, he looked like one. So anyway, so then to tour then for him to survive, and for him to then survive 10 years of drugs and alcohol, MDMA and cocaine and all that stuff. And I have his permission to talk about this kind of stuff. we certainly talked about it on the tour as I was introducing songs, but, you know, for him to survive those 10 years and then, you know, and we didn't know if he was going to survive them. And then to be on tour again, playing for people that have been supporting my music for 30 years in Europe. And, you know, bringing their kids. And here I am with my eldest, who I've never toured before because he's had struggled so much. That's one of my number one.
Yeah.
My top three.
It's probably one of your top three experiences in life in general. I got to believe. Yeah. Not only musically.
Sure. You know, and then my son Alexander is absolutely one of my favorite musicians of all time. He has such an amazing musical mind. I've seen him like lead a band at a CD release where the artist kind of had forgot their own songs. Like literally the artist, I think maybe was so nervous, and Xander was playing at the CD release, and the artist really forgot how their songs went and was really struggling. And somehow Xander like carried the band on drums, and so everybody could play together. It was one of the most bizarre things, amazing things I've ever seen, but he does that naturally. He's an amazing musician. So playing with him, you know, I'm going to go see him tonight. He plays drums in the band that I play guitar in. For this amazing artist named Logan Staats. We're doing a photo shoot tonight. We're going to do a little recording. It's for Logan's album. It's for the album artwork. So just playing with Xander has been one of the joys of my life for sure. You know, he's been a huge part of my musical life for sure. And he's the drummer. He's in the core band for this Cross Country Driver project that I mentioned, that Mike plays drums on a couple songs. And
you let Mike Mangini slip in for a song or two.
To give the kid a chance. So that, and then, I mean, I could certainly point to like recording in Belgium with my daughter. We rented a little flat. And it was my daughter, Rose, my son, Xander, my wife, Frances, and I, and we rented this little flat in Antwerp, Belgium, and recording with my daughter, Rose, literally 5 months after she got her first guitar.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And, we recorded in Germany as well, in Cologne. I just had a portable recording system with me, and so that would be one for sure, if I looked at my kind of musical things. But the other thing is kind of overarching over everything is just the people that I've been able to, that I've played with for now. I've been playing with and making music with my friend Ronnie Jones from California, and with Stevie Salas, who now lives in Austin, and with Nick Brophy. Just the three of them, I've been making music with them for almost 40 years.
That's amazing, man.
I know. It's incredible.
It's really amazing.
It's incredible.
Well, when you think like how long have you known your wife for, as many years, but not that long, that's a pretty long.
I have these incredibly loyal people that, when I was, tripping in my own couple of decades of alcohol overuse, I had people like Stevie and Ronnie and Nick that were always like, hey, you want to write a song? Hey, you want to do this? You want to,
Yeah.
They always had faith in me when I didn't.
Right.
I talked about a lot of the kind of good stuff here, but I also had, through all those years of kind of going with the flow and all those opportunities, I struggled with my alcohol use for 20 something years. And, like I said, it's a job where if you're not careful, the perks can kill you or kill your creativity, or whatever it is. Right. So, that would have to be a highlight, just the people, and I'd have to include Vivian Campbell in that, just like loyal, generous friends, that have just been with me every step of the way, and always had confidence in me when I didn't, and have, continue to this frickin' day. Like, it's so crazy. We released a song a couple months ago, Nick and I did, that we wrote in Nashville, and Viv played guitar on it. He did the guitar solo, and and he calls me up, with all that's going on in his career, which is huge, and his life. He's just moved to the East Coast, and he calls me and he goes, I just want you to know, like, I just listened to the song that you guys asked me to play on. He goes, I listened to it three times through and I cried each time. And like, that's the kind of friends I have that will call me and tell me that. Like,
yeah, that's really cool, man.
Incredible. Yeah. Jesus. If I never write another song, I could just, I could be happy. I am happy.
How did you quit? Did you get sober? Did you like go to a program, or like, how did you wean yourself off booze?
Well, one time for a year.
I mean, to whatever extent you're comfortable, man. If you're not comfortable, that's totally cool, Rob. We don't need to talk.
I did it for a year once because I had agreed, I was basically, as part of a bail bond, I was not to have alcohol. And that was when I, early on in my journey here in Canada, and I didn't drink because I was afraid of being deported. I got in trouble with immigration, and I was in criminal court, immigration court, and family court trying to wrap up my first marriage. All of this.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's not enough stress, man.
4.5 years, my amazing second wife and I, we were in those courts for 4.5 years, and they were all interrelated, right?
Yeah.
Come out of a family court hearing or a criminal court hearing, and there would be the immigration van. Literally, there was the officer, because if I got convicted, I would have been...
you would have been booted.
So it was a delicate times. But so there was that year where I couldn't drink without fear of potentially being deported. And then I'm going to have to text someone and let them know I'm not joining in a Zoom meeting. But I'll tell you, my brother took his own life, and I know you know what that feels like.
Yeah, man.
And that was 2010.
Wow, man. This is really weird.
Yeah. That was January of 2010. And that, I wanted to do well. I wanted to do better. I wanted to be healthier, but that was the thing that, really, the fight to stay in my kids' lives, what led to my first attempt to like get my shit together, in a serious way. But I was still struggling with that. And then, yeah, it really was when my brother took his own life, that was, I don't even know how to describe it, even though it's been 10 years now. That certainly made me take stock of what is life, what is a husband, what is a father, what is family, what is a friend, what's an ally, what am I, what am I doing, it certainly inspired me to look at my own mental health and say, I got some work to do. Right. So, yeah, that's the
wow,
brutal truth of it right there.
So did you just stop drinking, or just over time, or you just like,
I was always too chicken shit to like go to AA, and like, or NA. And when I was in LA, like most of my friends were going to AA or NA, almost all of them.
Yeah.
I was too chicken shit. Like I wasn't brave enough to do that, to be honest. It stopped me. I let it stop me, that sort of, that fear of like saying I'm Rob Lamothe and I'm an alcoholic. I couldn't do it. I was too chicken shit. So, what I did, I got counseling for 2 years straight. I went once a week. It was geared to income. It was before I had my residency, or my citizenship here, I should say. And that gave me something to build off of.
Yeah.
I wanted to,
That's a long time, man. That is a very long commitment, man. I give you credit. That's not easy. And anybody who has not been to, I don't think anybody listening, I couldn't imagine anybody listening to this has not been to a therapist.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, but that is a lot of work. 2 years of weekly. I mean, you'd have been easier off at a meeting.
Maybe. And I had a really brilliant, challenging counselor.
Yeah, which is good. Which is good.
Income at the time, and this was before my brother took his life. But usually I say that in a starker way. In a private conversation, I might say that in a starker way, but I'm saying it in a more gentle way because we're recording this. But those 2 years helped me, but really it was it helped build something that I had something to work off of when it came time to okay, I gotta do some work here. So, to be honest, I had certainly had suicidal thoughts when I was a teenager, but nothing since. That isn't an issue for me, but it was just that stark reminder, someone from your own house, as a kid.
Yeah, man.
Taking their life. Obviously that's a heavy thing to happen for anyone. And I didn't do any specific kind of counseling or meetings, but I was also getting training when I volunteered at that youth center and became the active program manager. That was right around that same time, 2009, 2010. So, and then I ended up again being a crisis worker. So I was getting training around mental health first aid, all kinds of training around addictions, understanding and managing aggressive behavior, nonviolent crisis intervention, stuff that always you think as much as anything else when you're trying to understand, why do people do this, or why would someone do that, or what do you do when someone does this or that? And all of that, if you've done any of that kind of training, it's the same with martial arts. It's hard not to think of it's hard to leave all of that outside of yourself, right? So I think all of that conspired to help me just kind of get it under control and have a much healthier life since for the last certainly 8 or 9 years. I've been on a really kind of golden run, which doesn't feel tenuous to me. It's like at the beginning of this pandemic, it's like my wife and I were just talking about this morning, we both kind of just figured out what we needed to do to keep ourselves healthy. And we just went right into it. We're both, we're resilient and we are, we have some skills, that we've developed over the years. And I knew the first thing I thought of was, I got to watch my alcohol consumption. I'm going to be in lockdown or whatever you want to call it. I knew that right away. I got to take care of myself.
It's interesting you say that. I have a couple of buddies that have gotten sober, and I can't call them up and say, hey man, are you okay with your drinking? Because it's not my business to do that. I don't know them well enough to do that. Yeah. But that has gone through my mind during this thing, where I am concerned about some people that I have met through the show, actually, that are, just people I care about and I like, and that I do talk with, but you can only say, you got to know somebody super, super well to say that. It's not my place to say that.
This is one of the best things. I just thought of it the other day. I saw my daughter 2 days ago, and, one of the things that we can do in our family is say, how's your mental health? You know,
Yeah.
how are you doing? You know,
How's your mental health?
yeah. So it's hard when you have to, and sometimes you do. We have people in our lives that, you know, that we're trying to be supportive of throughout this really challenging time for everyone, right?
Yeah.
And we, you know, we're trying to take care of ourselves at the same time, of course, so we can have the capacity to be supportive for some of the people in our lives that maybe need a little extra support right now. So
self-care is extremely important now at times like this, man. You have got to, like, now's not the time to go martyr. You know, there's no reserve left for most people.
No, and that's the thing. And as a parent, you learn that, hopefully, you know, you kind of realize, oh, if I got nothing in the tank, I've got nothing for my kid. At the end of the night, I'm burned out and they need me for something, you know, when they're little or when they're bigger.
No, they don't stop needing you. Yeah. And it's nicer when they're bigger, because they'll tell you, hey, I need you. Can you help me? And that's, I don't know, I'm sure you feel the same way. It's so rewarding when you hear that after all the years of, like, basically lecturing them, and, you know, you really need to, and they're like, roll their eyes where you're just a pain in the ass.
I'll never forget those days of when my oldest was really struggling, and I could hear myself saying stuff to him that I'd said, you know, 30 times, the same talk about, you know, addictions and getting help and support. And, you know, I said the same things over and over and over. And the fact that maybe a lot of what I was saying was true, if he's, you know, if someone's not ready to hear it and they don't want to hear it, you are wasting your breath.
Yeah. And you're annoying the shit out of them for no reason.
Absolutely. I was annoying the shit out of myself. I was like, I can't believe I'm saying this again, but here I am. The words are coming out of my mouth as I'm thinking this, you know? You know, it's love. It's just dumb love for your kids.
I know, but addiction's a separate animal. It's not, you know, most people that haven't had to deal with that think it's like, oh man, you know, if you need to get more willpower. They don't understand that that's not what an addict's dealing with, that, you know, there's mental stuff involved. I'll never forget, somebody I know was going to NA, and they said to me, Craig, it's like this. One is too many and a million's not enough. You know, and I understand that. I mean, not from me personally, but I mean, from an empathetic standpoint, I get it, man. That's torture, you know? And I think anybody that does any kind of major change like that, I mean, I have just, whether they do it through a program or however the hell you do it, that's a pretty major thing. And people don't understand what that takes to, you know, basically reprogram yourself.
Yeah. I read a couple books and then was so fortunate through my work at the youth center to be able to go to a 2-day workshop with Dr. Gabor Mate.
Don't know
if you've ever heard of him. He's based in BC, British Columbia, and he runs like the clinics for the street level people that are living on the street that are addicted to opiates in Vancouver. It's a huge community. It's outrageous.
It's all over here in the States. Opiates have fucking destroyed this country, man.
So this guy is like brilliant. And of course, it's all about pain. It's all about, you know, trauma. And he said something interesting. He said, in 12 years of supporting people that were addicted to opiates, he had never worked with a woman that hadn't been sexually assaulted who was doing opiates. Not once. He said 100% of the time. And he said, and the men aren't going to share that. Most of them aren't going to share where their pain comes from.
Yeah.
But that's what people don't understand. And the crisis work that I did for those 5 years where I was in hospitals with people and, treatment centers and, supporting people in any environment, and really, people detoxing, people trying to go cold turkey in a hotel room, sweating black on their sheets every night, for 6 nights of like torture. I learned so much. And one thing I learned is kind of beyond empathy. For me, at least for my definition of empathy, that as it used to be was, well, I can understand that this person that's coming in and doing whatever it is, drinking hand sanitizer, as I'm about to take them to treatment and they're guzzling hand sanitizer in the washroom outside my office, which means now I don't get to take them to treatment, for one thing, because they're not. They're not going to take someone in there that's literally now just ingested a bunch of hand sanitizer. We went to the hospital instead. But it's not about understanding where they're coming from and that, you know, they've got this thing happened or that thing happened and it's affected them still, you know, and no wonder. And I empathize with that. It's really what I realized is having that kind of feelings towards a fellow human when you don't know where they're coming from, when you can't explain it. Well, this happened to her or this happened to him when he was 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't always know, but what I do know is that if somebody is coming to me, you know, or someone's, you know, OD'd on an opiate, it's like you may not know where they're coming from, but can you care about them anyway? You know, like without knowing where it comes from. It's almost a luxury.
Which is harder.
The problem is.
Which is harder because you meet them in conditions where their behavior is not what you want to do. It's hard to find the compassion in there and you don't know it. Yeah, I can imagine that.
Trying to rip you off. They might be trying to scam you or whatever. Yeah. But what I know is that what I learned, whatever someone walked into my office with, or if maybe I was meeting them somewhere else, whatever it was, they brought it in honestly. Nobody, and this is something Dr. Lamothe said, a woman that is pregnant is not deciding, you know what, I'm going to start doing opiates and I'm going to use dirty needles that someone else used, and I'm going to clean that needle with gutter water. Yeah,
she didn't just make that decision 20 minutes ago. Right.
No one says, you know what, my upbringing was good. I feel good. My life's been stable, but I'm going to start doing opiates. Like that doesn't happen, right? It doesn't.
Yes.
Sure, someone might experiment with something that is a possibility, but he was saying that, you know, in his 12 years that he'd been literally in what they call the Tenderloin. No, that's San Francisco. They call it something in Vancouver.
A district, like some district?
District, but it's Hastings Street, right? And hundreds of street level people living on the streets who are addicted to opiates. And he was saying, you know, like, you're not going to meet someone that just out of nowhere decides this is where I want my life to be, you know? And you might not know where it comes from, but there's what we should all know is the person came by it honestly. Whatever they're trying right now that seems crazy to you, whatever it is, it's something that works, helps them survive, you know, for the next 5 minutes or the next 5 hours or whatever.
Man, I don't, we've gone so far and deep. This is pretty, cool. It was very kind of you to share all that, man. Thank you. It was really, really.
You know what? You know, I could see by your bio that you were a person that's willing to share themselves. So I'm like, well, okay, I was prepared to do that.
That was very kind of you, man. Thank you. I want to ask you 3 more questions if it's okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Top 3 desert island discs.
Oh, wow. Neil Young, Harvest, Zeppelin, maybe Physical Graffiti.
I was just going to, don't say 2, please.
You know, that's the stuff that pulled me in early, those first 2 records for Zeppelin, right? One was made in like February and one in November same year.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, Neil Young, Harvest for sure.
Harvest is a beautiful record, man.
Yeah. Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti, just because, you know, I was in high school and, you know, I saw them 3 times.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Holy crap.
San Diego Sports Arena.
That's awesome.
$40 for a front row seat, Bucks ticket agency.
Oh, wow.
I think what the third one would be. I mean, I want to, God, there would be so many for the third one. And, and I might even go like towards like Rose Cousins, who's a Canadian singer-songwriter. Her record, I think it's called If You Were For Me. It's in my car, but that or, gosh, there'd be a lot of ones that might contend. Those first two are the most important two records to me, right? But I could so easily go to, Beatles. Yeah, there'd be too many to if I had to pick three. I'd really have to think about it. Those two. Those two are undeniable for me: Physical Graffiti and Harvest.
And Harvest.
Yeah, undeniable. So I'll just take the two.
Do you have any hobbies outside of music? You seem like a very artiste. Like I could see you having like a bunch of very artsy hobbies, man.
Well,
like, you specialize in collecting these cobalt blue glass bottles or something like that.
No, nothing like that. I am involved in my community and in social justice. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, literally yesterday, I was in on a Zoom meeting, of course, with our member of provincial parliament. I'm on the board of directors for an amazing organization called REACH. It provides programs for youth and their families in these two counties. So it's youth justice. We have a youth shelter, student nutrition, autism services, developmental services, crisis services. So,
dude, that's a lot of stuff you're doing. Plus, you're having a career.
Yeah, but
that's a big commitment.
I like to work. That's the thing. I really enjoy like working on stuff. So,
but that's work for others. That's really kind. That's very nice.
Yeah. There's perks like being on this board. There's perks to it. I've been able to go to some really interesting, inspiring conferences for Children's Mental Health Ontario. I've been to 3 of those, and you just get to hear from like leading edge thinkers around addictions, poverty, indigenous issues, mental health, all of it sort of geared towards youth and families. And so I'm passionate about those things. And I do find myself, somebody says, you think you might be interested in being on this board. And a couple of years later, I'm the president of the board of directors. Like, what? Now I've served 2 terms and now I'm the vice president of that board. And there's a lot of perks to it, actually. I get to learn a lot, and it's almost like a hobby for me. Like I get to, separate from that, I get to, I have a voice in the community, and I can go literally like challenge our police services. I can challenge our county government, our municipal government. I've gone and presented deputations to all of those, and express my willingness to want to work with them, but also challenging them to up their game. And I have a certain amount of sort of cachet, I guess, maybe in the community where people trust me because I've done good work. And so I've been, I try to use that for good.
Yeah. With great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
You know who said that, right?
Not Martin Luther King.
Spider-Man.
Oh. Yeah, I've never seen Spider-Man and Martin Luther King in the same time. I don't think so. Spider-Man.
Seriously, Spider-Man said that.
I believe you.
It sounds like something Martin Luther King would say, though.
I was thinking it was someone else, but I thought of him first for some reason. So I don't know if that's a hobby, but it's just it's a big part of my life, and is the community stuff, and activism and social justice. I'm very passionate. Hey, I'm going to be 62. Like, what am I going to leave behind? Some great songs, some beautiful songs, 3 beautiful humans, my kids, And hopefully, you know, that guy was willing to put in some effort on behalf of the community.
I think that's a very kind thing, man. I really do.
Well, that's what's important to me. So, yeah.
Hey, last question. Tell me the biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years and how much of that is intentional and how much of that is just a part of aging.
You know, patience. I've learned patience from some really challenging situations. You know, like I said, being involved in 3 different courts that were interconnected for 4.5 years, that I learned a lot of patience. And then even now, you know, my patience is just kind of developing, and that's a good thing. You know, I don't know about you, but I was raised, you know, well, boys are hot-headed, boys will be boys, they just blurt stuff out, you know, they're restless, all this stuff, you know, and sure, some of it's true and some of it gets pushed on us, right? So,
yeah.
You know, I was raised by, you know, my dad had been in the military for 15 years. If you want something, you go get it. You know, you take it. You take it from somebody else. That's how you take it. So I struggled that because I was also sensitive and shy and you know,
it's mine, bitch.
Songwriter. And so I struggled with like, how is a man supposed to be? Like, you know,
yeah,
I could figure it out. And I've just, I've become more patient. I've become aware of my own privilege, you know, as like a old straight white guy. Like I have so much privilege and I've become aware of that. And that is really informed my life in so many ways for the good. So, yeah.
Man, I cannot thank you enough, Rob. It's really, really very nice talking to you, man. I had no idea what to expect at all, man. It was like, that was very cool of you to share all this stuff. And I think a lot, I've had so many people obviously talk about getting sober that we have one of our playlists on YouTube is musician sobriety stories. And it's always in the top 2 or 3 and I've actually had people, and I'm humbled to have like participated in this any way at all, that send me an email that like, hey man, I'm really struggling and I listened to so-and-so's interview and it got me through today. And I was like, fuck, man.
That's amazing.
I like feel honestly like so great that somehow I could have helped and been a part of that, you know, to put something out there. So, let me tell people where to find you. First of all, we didn't talk much about, we talked about music, but this guy is incredibly talented. I mean, Rob is he's an amazing songwriter, and his voice, man, if you want to like, he was all soft and, you know, sensitive here, but let me tell you, this guy behind a microphone will tear your ass off. And I would really love you to at least listen to Riverdogs and check out a lot of his solo stuff, please. I'm going to give you a couple of places online where you could do that. Okay. It's Rob Lamothe. Let me spell his name. It's Rob, R-O-B, Lamothe, L-A-M-O-T-H-E. I was like sweating it, trying to figure out. I thought your name was French. I was like, how the hell are you? And then I think I heard you pronounce on an interview something. I was like, okay, it's just Lamothe. I was like, it's Lamothe. I wanted to like.
Deceptively easy.
Yeah, I didn't want to butcher your name up like I butchered everybody else's name up in the intro. But go to roblamothe.bandcamp.com or just go to Bandcamp and look up Rob Lamothe. It's, again, Lamothe. A lot of his stuff is there. Also, he's got, if you go to his website, roblamothe.com, all of his social media links are there. So I invite you to connect with him on all of those places and, you know, follow him on Instagram and Facebook, like his Facebook page. And I'm old, I always mess this up. And like subscribe to his YouTube channel. Also check out And the River Reveals Herself. That's his project with his kids that he's done multiple tours, and he's really proud of that. And what a great story. If you have not checked out Riverdogs, please go and like buy or stream the music. Riverdogs has a great website at riverdogsmusic.com. Rob himself has released 8 solo records as well as a bunch of EPs and singles. What else is here? And there was one other thing I wanted to mention that you said I thought was nice. If you're in Canada or if you are inclined, what the name of your the charitable group that you're a part of? Branch? Is that what it is?
Oh, it's called Reach. It's
Reach. I'm sorry.
REACH. Yeah.
Yeah. Check out Reach if you want to support a community charity that Rob's involved with, whether you're in Canada or not. It's just a nice thing to do.
Hey, thank you for that. Yeah, it's a nonprofit, and there's over 100 employees. We have a staff every Friday, actually, with like 111 participants, and it's optional. Not everybody on the staff has to participate in these meetings, and every Friday they're all there. It's wild.
Dude, that's a big organization.
Oh yeah, I know.
For a community group. Yeah, right on, man. And also, if you want to learn how to be in a board of directors, hire this man as a consultant. No, I want to tell you, Rob is available also, man. If you want to do some, hire him as a side man. He's busy all the time in the studio recording tracks. Best way to do that is go to his website at roblamothe.com and there's a contact tab there and message him there. Just give him details what you're looking for, and send him some links of what your current music is so he can make respond to you appropriately and have some sense of idea what's going on to start some dialogue with you. But listen to Riverdogs. You will not want to, if you're looking for a singer, man, this is your guy, it's true, man. Your voice is awesome, man. I mean, it's just, when I heard that, I was like, holy shit, this is like amazing.
Well, thanks to Mario, our mutual friend Mario, for connecting us.
Yeah, man. He's
really, really fun for me. And it is a conversation, and I appreciate that so much. It's not how everybody does something like this. And
oh, thank you, man.
You went with the flow. You went with me, and because you asked questions that maybe brought something up, and we just went with it. And I appreciate that so much. Thank you so much.
Like water. Well, thank you. It's funny. It was people say to me, how do you do interviews? And I'm like, I always cringe because I never think I'm doing an interview, because to me an interview is like, okay, what's the string gauge? Okay. I just, it's like rote, and I could never do it. I want to talk to you, man. Like, I wouldn't go to, like, if we met like from a mutual buddy, like Mario introduced us in a bar, I wouldn't like pull out a fucking script and like, right. So anyway, thank you. That's very kind of you. And thanks a bunch for coming on the show. So bottom line is, check out Rob Lamothe. He's made some great music. Check out Riverdogs. Check out his solo stuff. Anything else that you want me to put out there?
No, that's amazing. More than I would have dreamed of. You promoting my music. Thank you so much. Dude,
you're an awesome, very talented guy. And I'm not saying that because you're here. You're very talented. I'm really happy to get to connect with you. And that's about it, man. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Please check out Rob Lamothe's music, both his solo stuff, his stuff with Riverdogs, and his project And the River reveals herself. I had it right. The problem is also I write like a doctor, man, and I can't read my own writing anymore as I've gotten older. And just go to roblamothe.com. Everything he's doing is on there. Thanks to Rob spending time with us. And most important, man, we talked about a lot of heavy shit today, and this is what it's all about. Remember, man, happiness really is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar or sing or dance or just have fun and get through COVID and get some coping skills. And man, this shit's going to be over. Don't worry. Be nice, go play your guitar and have fun. Till next time, peace and love. I am out. Rob, thank you for everything, brother.
Thank you.